All right, so today we're diving into something pretty interesting. This whole idea of how tourism in Bangladesh is actually connected to how India's travel industry is recovering after, well, 2020. Everyone's saying travel's back and booming, but
Yeah.
when you look at the numbers for India, it's a little different.
Yeah. It's definitely been a slower climb back. And I think a lot of people are kind of scratching their heads a bit. You've got Indians traveling internationally more than ever. But the number of foreign tourists coming into India, well, it's down almost 10% compared to 2019.
Exactly. So it just makes you wonder what's going on. And that's where this Indian Express article we have comes in. It really dives into this whole Bangladesh connection.
Oh yeah, Bangladesh.
Before the pandemic, Bangladesh was a huge EE market for India's tourism industry.
Seriously huge.
Over 20% of their tourists were coming from Bangladesh.
Wow, that's a big chunk.
I know, right? They were going for everything: medical tourism, shopping, even just regular vacations.
Makes sense. The two countries are right there. It's easy to pop over the border.
Exactly. But then, well, things got kind of complicated,
Yeah, 2024 was a bit of a roller coaster for Bangladesh, politically speaking.
to say the least.
I mean, you had Sheikh Hasina resigning, and then she left the country in August. All of that definitely had some ripple effects.
And tourism seems to have taken a hit.
Oh, absolutely. You can see a clear dip in the numbers of Bangladeshi tourists heading to India, especially in July and August, right when things were really heating up in Dhaka.
It's like this internal political drama in Bangladesh is somehow messing with India's tourism industry.
It is, and it shows just how connected these two countries are. But we have to remember, it's not the whole story.
Right, there's more to it.
India's got a lot of competition these days when it comes to attracting tourists.
So who are they up against?
Well, you've got the usual suspects like Qatar and Dubai.
Those are always popular.
Yeah, they've really upped their game,
Yeah.
easier visas, affordable travel options. They're making it really tempting for tourists. But then you've also got these up-and-coming destinations, like Azerbaijan, for example.
Oh, interesting.
They're coming in strong with these great travel packages and experiences.
So it's like a double whammy for India.
Yeah.
You've got this Bangladesh situation, and then all this pressure from other countries who are really fighting for those tourist dollars.
Yeah. It's a tough spot to be in.
It makes you wonder, is India losing its appeal, or is this just a temporary thing?
That's the big question, isn't it? And to really understand what's going on, we need to look beyond just Bangladesh. We need to see what these other successful countries are doing and see if India can learn anything from them.
Okay, so let's dig into that. What are these other Asian countries doing that's working so well?
Well, let's take Vietnam, for example. Their tourism industry has not only bounced back, it's actually doing better than it was before the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah, they've been really strategic, focusing on their natural beauty, all those amazing rice paddies and beaches. And they've put a lot of effort into their infrastructure, making it easier for tourists to get around and explore.
So they're making sure the whole visitor experience is smooth and enjoyable.
Exactly.
What about Sri Lanka? I've heard they're doing pretty well too.
Oh, yeah, Sri Lanka's a great example. They've had their own share of challenges, but they've made an amazing comeback. One of their big things has been this focus on sustainable tourism.
Sustainable tourism, that's definitely a hot topic these days.
It is, and Sri Lanka's really embraced it. They're all about eco-friendly practices and responsible travel, which is appealing to more and more travelers who are thinking about their environmental impact.
So it sounds like Vietnam and Sri Lanka are playing to their strengths, whether it's natural beauty, sustainability, or their unique cultures. Does India have any of those things in its arsenal?
Oh, absolutely. India has all of that and more. The natural diversity is incredible, from the Himalayas to the tropical beaches, and their culture is so rich and diverse. Plus, there's a growing awareness of sustainability there, too.
So it sounds like India has all the right ingredients. Maybe it's just a matter of refining the recipe a little bit.
You got it. India can definitely take some cues from Vietnam's focus on infrastructure and diversifying what they offer, and they can learn from Sri Lanka's emphasis on sustainability and showcasing their cultural experiences. But maybe the biggest lesson is about being proactive. Both Vietnam and Sri Lanka have been really aggressive with their marketing and promotion.
So it's not enough to just have a great product. You have to get out there and show it off to the world, make it easy for people to experience it.
Exactly. It's about creating an experience that makes travelers want to come back for more, not just checking India off their bucket list.
That's a great point. But before we get too carried away, I'm curious about something we haven't really touched on yet: the people on the ground, the ones who actually make tourism happen.
Oh yeah, that's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in all the big picture stuff, but tourism is all about people. the people who work in the industry, the communities that welcome tourists. Understanding their perspective is crucial, how these global trends and changes in tourist preferences affect their lives.
It's about that human connection, right? The cultural exchange, the shared experiences. That's what makes travel so enriching.
Couldn't agree more. As we explore the future of tourism, we have to keep that human element front and center.
So we've got this fascinating link between Bangladesh's politics and India's tourism. We've looked at what countries like Vietnam and Sri Lanka are doing so well, and we've acknowledged how important the human side of all this is. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's all about staying curious. Keep asking questions, be open to different perspectives. The world of travel is constantly changing, and the more we learn, the more we can appreciate how powerful travel can be, how it connects us and broadens our horizons.
Beautifully said. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I think you had one final thought for our listeners to ponder.
I did. We've talked a lot about India needing to adapt and learn from its neighbors. But let's flip the script for a second. What about us, the travelers? What role do we play in shaping the future of tourism? What impact do our choices have on the places we choose to visit?
Ooh, that is a thought-provoking question to end on. It reminds us that we're not just passive observers in all of this. We have a responsibility to be mindful, to make conscious choices, and to understand that our actions have consequences.
Exactly. So to everyone listening out there who's planning their next adventure, remember, you're not just booking a trip, you're shaping the future of travel. Be curious, be mindful, and most importantly, have fun.
It's so true. We get caught up in the planning and everything, but we don't always think about the impact.
Yeah, it's all about flights and hotels and where we're going to eat. But thinking about how we can actually shape tourism, that's a whole different way of looking at it.
And it's empowering because it means we can actually support the kind of tourism we want to see.
Yeah.
If we choose sustainable options, if we look for authentic cultural experiences, it sends a message to the whole industry.
It's like we're voting with our wallets, supporting what matters to us. Exactly. And it's more than just picking eco-friendly hotels or tours. It's about moving away from being just a tourist and becoming a traveler, being present, engaging with the communities, supporting local businesses, even trying to learn a few words in the local language can make a difference.
So bring it back to India. If they're facing these challenges, what can we as travelers do to help? Should we avoid going there altogether?
No, not at all. India's history and culture and all that natural beauty, it's not going to disappear overnight. This might actually be a good time to explore some of the less visited areas. Get off the beaten path and discover those hidden gems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There are some really cool community-based tourism projects all over India. Organizations that are helping women in rural areas through tourism or promoting traditional crafts. By supporting these initiatives, we're directly contributing to positive change.
So instead of sticking to the usual tourist spots, we can actually use our travels to make a difference.
Exactly. It's about being conscious and deliberate with our choices. And speaking of conscious choices, there's another side to this whole India situation. Remember how we were talking about Vietnam and Sri Lanka being so proactive?
Yeah, they've been killing it.
Well, there's a reason for that. It's not just about beaches and sustainability.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the secret?
Let's look at Vietnam. They totally revamped their visa policies, made it super easy for tourists from a bunch of countries to get visas on arrival. That makes a huge difference for travelers. And they didn't stop there. They've been running these really targeted marketing campaigns, highlighting all the different experiences Vietnam has to offer.
So they're not just waiting for tourists to come to them, they're going out and getting them.
Exactly.
What about Sri Lanka? What's their approach?
Sri Lanka has been really smart with their digital marketing, using social media to reach a global audience, showing off those amazing pictures of their country, and highlighting what makes them unique. They've also been working on improving infrastructure and connectivity, so tourists have a good experience from the moment they land.
So both Vietnam and Sri Lanka are really putting in the effort.
Yeah, they're investing in infrastructure, making things easier, and getting the word out there.
It's a pretty impressive strategy.
And this is where things get interesting when you compare it to India. India has so much potential, but there are some areas where they might be falling behind, like their visa process, for example. It can be really complicated for some nationalities.
Yeah, I've heard that from friends who've tried to get Indian visas. It could definitely be a deterrent.
Right, and when you compare that to Vietnam's visa on arrival system, it's a big difference. And even though India's been promoting tourism, their marketing might not be as targeted or as aggressive as some of their competitors.
So it's not just about having a great product. It's about making it easy to access and appealing to the right people.
Exactly. And that's where India can learn from Vietnam and Sri Lanka. analyze their strategies, and adapt them to their own situation.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. We started with this unexpected connection between Bangladesh and India's tourism. Then we looked at what countries like Vietnam and Sri Lanka are doing right. And now we're even thinking about our own role as travelers in shaping the future of tourism.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? And we're not finished yet. Remember that final thought I mentioned about travelers shaping the future of tourism? Well, let's dig into that a little deeper because it's really important.
We can't just leave it at that, can we?
No.
It's easy to get caught up in what countries are doing.
Right.
But in the end, tourism is a two-way street. We have to think about the impact we have as travelers.
I agree. Think about it this way. Every time you book a trip, you're kind of voting for the kind of tourism you want to see. Do you want experiences that are sustainable and help local communities? Or are you just focused on checking things off your bucket list without thinking about the consequences?
It's like we're investing in tourism with our money.
Exactly. And just like any good investor, we should do our research. Understand where our money's going and if it aligns with our values.
So how do we actually become more conscious travelers? What are some practical things we can do?
Well, it all starts with education. Before you book that flight, take some time to learn about the place you're going. Are there any ethical things you should know about? Are there local projects you can support? Can you minimize your environmental impact?
So it's about going beyond the pretty pictures and really understanding the place.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're actually there, be mindful of how you interact with people. Choose local businesses, engage with residents respectfully. Try to learn about their culture and traditions.
It's about being a respectful guest. Not just an observer, but someone who's actively engaging with the place and its people.
Exactly. And this brings us back to India. We've talked about the challenges they're facing. But imagine if everyone who visited India traveled with this conscious, responsible mindset.
It could make a huge difference. We could be part of the solution instead of the problem.
Absolutely. By supporting sustainable tourism, choosing ethical tour operators, even just being mindful of how much we consume, we can help create a more responsible and beneficial tourism industry in India.
So it's not just about going to India, it's about how we experience it.
Exactly. And, this goes for any place we travel to, whether it's India, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, or some hidden gem. Our choices as travelers have a ripple effect.
This deep dive has been quite a journey. We started by looking at this unexpected connection between Bangladesh and India's tourism. Then we looked at what successful countries like Vietnam and Sri Lanka are doing. And now we're talking about our own role as travelers in shaping the future of tourism.
It really shows that tourism is about more than just checking off a list. It's about cultural exchange, understanding our place in the world, and making sure our travels have a positive impact.
So, to everyone listening, as you plan your next adventure, remember you're not just a tourist. You're a traveler, a global citizen. Be curious, be mindful, and most importantly, use your travels to make a difference.
Until next time, happy travels, everyone.